Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the Season 8 premiere of The Walking Dead. This video will contain spoilers for the entire episode and some possible potential future spoilers for the show, as I'll also be talking about some scenes in this installment that are similar to those which are present in the comics. If that's something that you do have a problem with, then please don't watch. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. During the last 6 or so months that The Walking Dead has been off air, there's been an awful lot of talk going around concerning how action-packed and fast-paced this new season will be. Whilst many fans have found themselves excited by this prospect, others like myself have remained rather cautious. In my opinion, there's been many promises made not only by the showrunners, but also the actors and actresses on the show during the last couple of years that haven't really been realised. So you can perhaps understand why I haven't fully believed a lot of the quotes I've seen in the media concerning Season 8. However, this week's episode of The Walking Dead Mercy managed to put a lot of my fears surrounding the new season to rest. All in all, I found it to be a fast-paced fun hour of television which left me wanting more. Sure, it has its problems, and yes, there is no guarantee that the rest of the season will be as good, but where the Season 6 and 7 premieres failed to get me hyped for the next 15 episodes to come, the Season 8 premiere succeeds. Mercy focuses on the first real act of war between Negan's saviours and the other communities. The episode begins with Rick rallying the troops, before picking off some high-ranking saviour officials and finally culminates in a climatic firefight. Everything builds up to a thrilling crescendo, and I feel like the pacing, one of the things that I often criticise The Walking Dead for not getting right, is spot on throughout. There are a lot of clever moments in this instalment that I really appreciated. I enjoyed seeing Dwight and Daryl exchange messages through firing arrows. I know it was only a small scene, but it was a really cool inclusion. Of course, this then led to various members of Rick's group scratching saviours off the hit list that Dwight had provided, as their lives were all ended in a brutal fashion. Again, something that made for entertaining viewing even though it was a bit gruesome. I found the attack on Negan's compound itself to be a well planned and thought out affair. It wasn't just a case of Rick charging into the saviour's base and simply hoping for the best, instead a great deal of care was clearly taken when launching the assault. I want to quickly point out that I thought the use of shielded vehicles was an absolutely genius idea, which not only offers protection when on the move but cover when stationary. Now, I've seen a lot of comments on the internet complain about the conversation that took place between Negan and Rick before the firefight started. Most of these complaints revolve around the fact that Rick could have just shot Negan where he stood, ending things there and then. Normally I'd be the first to complain about something like this as well, but truth be told, I just don't really care. As viewers, we all know that Negan is the show's main antagonist at the moment. There's probably been hundreds of examples already when people had the opportunity to kill him and for some reason didn't. But you could probably say the same of any villain really. I mean, Rick had a whole sit-down meeting with the governor. He could have killed him then and there if he wanted to, but didn't. This same principle also applies to Rick. I mean, how many times has Rick been in a situation where realistically he should have died, but was either saved at the last minute or by some kind of sheer luck? Ultimately, The Walking Dead is a TV show. These things happen and will continue to happen. Honestly, I want to see Rick interact with Negan as much as possible. I want to see the pair of them talking to one another, arguing about whose dick is bigger, and this isn't possible without some kind of suspension of disbelief. I mean, yes, if Rick and Negan didn't have a nice little chinwag before the firefight, it would have been more realistic, but would it have been more entertaining? No, somehow I don't think so. I'm sure some people will be surprised at my newfound positivity. Maybe I'm just getting a bit less critical of the show as time goes on, or maybe it's just got to the point where now I don't see much value in complaining about The Walking Dead not being realistic, when the show contains zombies, a tiger and a guy who talks to his baseball bat. The conversation itself between Negan and Rick was great to watch. I love seeing Rick back to his old cocky self bossing Negan around. After seeing him so terrified and broken last season, it was nice to see him be the one giving out the orders this time around. The reveal that Gregory teamed up with Negan didn't really come as a surprise. I mean, the man's a complete coward, but it did make me chuckle seeing that absolutely no one from the hilltop gave a crap about what he had to say. And hearing Jesus talk over him and proclaim that the hilltop stands with Maggie made me want to fist pump the air. The firefight after this conversation was a decent watch, even if we didn't really get to see any of the saviours fight back. Seeing Negan crawl behind the remains of the RV clinging to safety was damn satisfying. I also like the similarities between the comic and the TV show. I remember reading the comics and witnessing Rick and co shoot all the glass windows in Sanctuary, as well as surround the place with walkers, so as a comic book reader this was a nice little touch. I'm not entirely sure what Rick's Polaroid camera was about though. One half of me thinks back to when Glenn found pictures on the wall in the Saviour's compound and wonders whether maybe Rick is doing it as a screw you to Negan, whilst the other half of me thinks that maybe Rick photographed the aftermath to show the people at home in Alexandria what happened in an attempt to boost morale. Hell, maybe both theories are correct, I just hope that we find out soon. Going back for a moment to the previously mentioned Gregory, I really don't think there is a character on the show who I hate as much as him at the moment. I didn't fathom that he could really stoop much lower after practically being up Simon's arse for the whole of last season, but having him steal Gabriel's vehicle and leave him for dead when Gabriel was trying to help him escape was a completely scumbag thing to do. I actually said something out loud about Gregory when I saw the scene take place, which was a lot worse than scumbag, and I'll leave that to your imagination. I want to briefly mention Carl, as Karl Popper did have a few scenes in which he interacted with a weird stranger. I did enjoy viewing Carl being annoyed at his dad's failure to seemingly trust anyone that he doesn't know. A couple of seasons ago, Carl would have been the one to fire at a stranger and not his dad, so it's interesting seeing these roles reversed. It's also kind of nice that even after all the shit that he's been through, Carl still sees some good in people. The last point I want to mention is the only thing that I didn't really like from this week's episode, and that is the flashbacks, or should I say flash forwards. Now this is where I go into potential future spoilers, so please skip to the end if you don't want to listen. I really don't see the point of including these flash forward scenes in the show. I feel that all it does is confuse non-comic book readers as they don't have a clue what's going on. I mean, I've seen so many topics on the internet asking is Rick waking up from his coma at the start of the program, that it's quite frankly starting to annoy me. In addition, I feel that for a comic book reader such as myself, it doesn't really do much for me either. I mean, my girlfriend who doesn't read the comic books kind of worked out what was going on and said to me, so if this is a scene from the future, I know now that Rick wins the war, and that Michonne also survives, so it's actually spoiled a lot for me. And you know what, I actually agree with her. I don't really understand the decision to include this sequence at all if I'm honest. I will mention however that I did like the little nod to the comics when Michonne mentioned a festival taking place to Rick. Comic book readers will know that it's during this festival that the Whisperer leader Alpha infiltrates the community, kidnapping and killing many prominent characters, so I'll admit this bit of fan service was a nice little touch. In summary, Mercy was a pretty great opener to the new season of The Walking Dead. It had some great set pieces, clever moments, and hopefully has set the tone for things to come. I'll admit that during the last couple of seasons at times the show had become a bit of a chore to sit through. However, this episode was a joy to watch from start to finish, and the next instalment can't come soon enough. All I can say is welcome back Walking Dead and bring on next week's episode. So there you have it, my review of the new episode of The Walking Dead. Please let me know your thoughts below, and as always, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.